Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rishu Mahalha. I am the Strengthening Stark Economic Advisor. I've had an opportunity to work now in Stark County for the last 6-7 months, helping put together this economic development plan. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take basically the next hour to walk you through some of the conclusions that we have reached through our exercise. And as we walk through today's conversations, a couple of thoughts for you to be thinking about. First, we're going to be sharing with you a variety of initiatives that we believe are crucial to helping successfully transform the economics of Stark County. So as we're walking through our recommendations, please be thinking about where you may potentially see an alignment with the work you do, or someone you know, or an organization that you're aware of that would like to participate in the process, because we truly believe that the strengthening, that the Stark County economics will truly be strengthened once we figure out how to develop the collective energy around all the initiatives that are going on, and that's an incredible opportunity, having worked in many communities across the country, to see the incredible resources that are available in Stark County through the Strengthening Stark economic development effort. If we can bring together that collective force, we will be able to accomplish a lot in a limited amount of time. So please be thinking about that to see how you may see potential alignment. And obviously we will have an opportunity at the end of this session for Q&A. So please do send us your thoughts. If you have questions afterwards, you can reach out to us as well, and our contact information will be in the materials that we will be sending out after the session. So without further ado, we'll jump right in. We will take about 15 minutes for the conversations, and at the end we will save time for your questions. You can use the chat function to send us your questions, and we will be monitoring them and then responding to them towards the end. So with that, let's jump right in. The effort, as I'd mentioned, started in late 2017, around October, and so over the course of the last 7-8 months, we've really had an opportunity to do a lot of really engaged efforts across the county. Stark County obviously is a lot of different things. It has a lot of communities, a lot of unique perspectives. So to date, we've had an opportunity to work with many of the leaders, and based on a lot of the conversations, looking at a lot of the economic data, we're going to be sharing with you some of the conclusions that we've reached.
We need to be thinking about tweaking so that we're really truly creating empowerment for our citizens. And so an analogy that we like to use is, think of it as sort of the economic ladder, understanding what rungs of the ladder are missing and how do we slowly build those rungs so that different citizens, whether you're a business owner, a student, a parent, an educator, philanthropist, you can figure out how to best apply your resources and skills. So as you can see, we have lots of organizations across Stark County that are driving a lot of great impact. The question is, how are we empowering these institutions, organizations, so that at the end of the day, our citizens truly benefit? You're going to see us talk a lot about some of the recommendations, but just to give you a little bit of context of how these recommendations came to be. Broadly speaking, making sure that we were engaging with the many stakeholders across Stark County. Obviously, Stark County isn't one thing. There are multiple communities, there are multiple perspectives, and so ensuring that we are taking the time to listen, to understand, so that our conclusions are in line with the perceptions, in some cases misperceptions, of what's going on in the community. And then balancing that with a lot of evidence, a lot of data that helps us understand what is going on from an economic lens, whether it's number of jobs, what our employment looks like, understanding what our workflow looks like. So understanding what the true data is, balancing it with the perspectives, has helped us sort of start to narrow down what areas we need to focus on. The idea wasn't to go ahead and start creating new programs, rather figure out ways in which existing programs, existing organizations can be empowered to drive greater impact. We looked at best practices, not just locally, regionally, state, but nationally, looking at what are other practices going on. And finally, probably the most important piece of the equation is understanding where there is leadership commitments to really wanting to see the picture of economics of Stark County evolve. And that point can't be emphasized enough. At the end of the day, we can have all the data and all the best recommendations, but if we don't have the leadership willing to get behind programming, we don't see movement in communities. So those were sort of the reasons or the background of how some of our conclusions came to be. Another point to highlight is, as this program has developed, we very much anchored on some principles of agile development. And agile, some of you may be familiar with this, it's a concept that a lot of technology companies use when building complicated, elaborate technology-based solutions. Some of their methodology has now been adopted to other parts of the economies as well. And certainly we wanted to borrow some of their practices in thinking about Stark County's economic future. And so what agile approach really entails is ensuring that whatever we're doing, we're anchoring on specific citizens, understanding what the needs are, building specific capability solutions, and then testing it with those very citizens to make sure that whatever we're creating, conceiving, thinking about aligns with the needs and the desires of the residents and the people who work here in Stark County. So that's a big piece of it. Anchor on specific case studies, test, build, learn, evolve, use data to inform your decision making, being very aggressive in understanding what's working, what's not working. And the other big piece of this is constantly making sure that those programs that are not working, either you tweak them or you identify, do we need to move on from certain programs? So some of that conceptual thinking is critical, especially in a program like what we're talking about here, just because if you can imagine the broad array of perspectives, leadership, resources that fluctuate, ensuring that we have a platform that allows us to think about both the best case scenarios, the worst case scenarios, and proactively manage them, will help us with the sustainability and long-term impact of the program drive. The last point there is Kaizen. And the Kaizen is sort of an Eastern term, which really identifies the idea that more important than getting a win or a loss in the short term is the ability to learn from what's working and what's not working, and the ability to continually evolve. And so these concepts are very much baked into our thinking. Our objectives for today, primarily for the audience, and certainly for the folks who listen to this after today's event. We will be recording this and sharing this with other folks. As you see ideas that are identified here that you recognize, you're enthusiastic about, or you're seeing programs that you think don't make any sense, either way, we want to hear from you to understand. Obviously, we've tried to be as comprehensive in our outreach, but we know there's a lot of perspective that we haven't touched. So please give us your feedback. There's an email address there. And then the other piece is we're in the recruitment zone now. So we're looking to recruit leaders who want to participate, want to lend their hand, their energy, their capabilities, their enthusiasm. So if you're seeing something that appeals to you, please reach out to us. And again, you can use that email address. Okay, we'll keep going. So let's get into the details. When we looked at the effort, we've really anchored ourselves on seven core elements of economic development. If we want to build a story of economics in Stark County that's going to be truly impactful and drive long-term impact, here are the things we had to focus on. First, we have to make sure that we are thinking about how all the pieces connect and fit together. This is not about a 5-month program that we piece together and it disappears in 6 months, 12 months. So how do we ensure sustainability of the program has been crucial. how do we build and put the right structures in place? Second is workforce, employment, our talent supply chain. Where are the people? What are they thinking? How do we empower them? How do we connect them with the opportunities? And really, again, it's going back to the analogy of the ladder. It's not about pushing people up the ladder. It's simply about making sure that folks understand what the opportunities are, when there are barriers, economic barriers that prevent them from achieving, getting to the next tier, that we are building on those mechanisms. So focusing on the workforce. 3, 4, 5 have to do with our businesses. Third is, how do we help support local businesses? What can we do? What are their issues? How do we support them in a more collaborative? Again, as you look across Stark County, we have a lot of businesses. We'll share some of those details there. But what can we do on that front? Fourth is, how do we help attract strategically important industries to our community? There are certain business clusters that are thriving in Stark County because of a variety of reasons. There are things we can do to further build that cluster. Sixth is around infrastructure. We have to look at critical portions of our infrastructure that need to be tweaked, refined, built, so that our businesses can have the platform to succeed. And the last one is really what we're doing here is community engagement. We can do all the great work, sit in all the fancy conference rooms and have all kinds of PowerPoint presentations. But at the end of the day, if we're not getting the message, the opportunities out to our citizens, if they don't understand how to plug into the opportunities that we are building, then all of this effort will not stand for a whole lot. So there's been a very methodical, deliberate approach to ensure that we are engaging with our citizens. So with that, let me dive into the details of some of the initiatives. First one, economic governance. On this side, really a place to start this discussion is around data. And we love the saying, data is the best antidote to anecdotes. And so some of the pieces that I'm going to share aren't necessarily unique to Stark County. Every community has stories that it tells itself. Some are factual. Many of them are factual, but some just end up taking a larger portion of our consciousness. And so how do we ensure that our individual experiences reflect the true needs, challenges of our community? And that's where data can be very helpful. Data doesn't solve all the pieces, but it can certainly help bring people together who may have dramatically varying views of what the issues and challenges are. And in this case, data has been incredibly helpful to the cause. So again, starting with some factual components helps us start the conversation around how are we going to bring all these stakeholders together, elected officials, philanthropy, business owners, large business owners, small business owners, students, parents, educators, nonprofits. How do we get them all to start aligning behind a common set of initiatives? And that's where data plays a long way. So some of the current challenges, and again, I can't emphasize this enough, while we're talking about the Stark County story, these are in many ways not unique to Stark County. So the challenges are generally you find competitive landscapes, whether it's in the philanthropy space, nonprofit space. You have organizations that have the right intentions, but we frankly just haven't set up a structure that allows them to collaborate, connect, and solve problems collectively. So that's been a challenge. Second is we've got a wide array of programming. Workforce, again, not to belabor that area, but because it's such a hotly debated area, it's something we looked a lot at to see what exactly do we have? What programs do we have? What programs are working? Where do we have challenges? And the conclusions are that we actually have a lot of stuff. Some of it is better than the other, and there's certainly a lot we can do to help align some of this programming. And the last piece is really sort of where the story naturally goes is how do we drive the collective impact? And in many of our conversations, this sort of visual, is something we like to share, which is based on what we see, and we get to do a lot of work across the country. Unequivocally, I make the point that Stark County has some very unique it's a very unique time for Stark County. There's a lot of stars that have lined up, whether it's the leadership in the right positions, certain funding, certain support, and even the Strengthening Stark report. Really, a lot of credit goes to the Strengthening Stark report that was put out by the Stark Community Foundation, which very clearly articulated, looking at the data, that we're getting older, we're getting smaller, and we're getting poorer. And so the idea that we have our community leaders all making the same conclusion allows Stark County to take some very deliberate steps forward. And I hope that some of the listeners don't take that for granted, because that opportunity, that window of opportunity opens up and then it has a tendency to shut down. So in many ways, our effort here hopefully is able to initialize, mobilize programming for the long term. So a structural shift. What we're talking about is creating a governance mechanism that allows us all to better understand who is doing what, who's driving what impact, as much as possible aligning ourselves to metrics. So what are the measurements that we are driving individually and then collectively? For too long, and again, this in no way is only a critique of Stark County, but too often we end up looking at micro metrics, micro variables. We're optimizing pieces of a flow rather than looking at from start to end, are we working in coordination, in concert, such that we are helping the overall development of our economics. So understanding how we connect, what's the data that we can collectively drive is a big part of where we go forward. Understanding how the funding lines up, lots of programming, lots of opportunities. How do we make sure that we are utilizing our funding in the most efficient way possible? And the goal is never to be at an A+. The idea is if you can get to 70, 80, 85%, where leaders have a better understanding of what the opportunities are, where the resource should go, you start to make much, much, much better decisions that automatically puts you in a top quartile of a community. So thinking about funding is crucial. And then last piece is creating a governance mechanism that's transparent and really driving visibility to not just what's working. And that's something else that sometimes governance models get themselves trouble in, is we like to tell good stories, here's what's worked, but creating a shift where we can recognize and own up to things that are not working allows us to be much more deliberate, proactive in saying what's not working, how do we address it, and again, some of those nuances and details are addressed in our governance structure. This picture really is sort of, again, stealing from the agile methodology. You put the customer in the middle of the equation, you create advisory teams of our customers, citizens, whether they are your business sectors, your students, your young generation folks, your retired population, and make sure that they have a collective voice that we are ensuring that this system has to be able to address. So starting there and then sort of building our way around it, making sure that we're creating a structure that allows for discussions, transparent conversations, and obviously funding is very much tied to that effort. We know sustainability is challenged. Communities really struggle with this piece, and so these are some of the building blocks that ensure a long-term success for the program. Let's talk about the talent supply chain. This is a big area, and some of this information we touched on last time, but let's just revisit it because I think that some of the data points are important. One of the important pieces to understand is when we talk about economic development, it's important to understand what is the issue that we're trying to solve. There should always be a focus on job creation. There should always be focus on high quality job creation. But in addition, we also need to have better understanding of what exactly do we have available now. If you think of workforce as almost like a factory. You're bringing in young resources, young individuals to a school system, K through 12. Then they're going through some sort of a secondary education, or they're going into the workforce. understanding what the flow of our labor looks like and how it connects with the needs on the demand side is a conversation that we need to sort of shift our orientation to. So in order to do that, we wanted to look at the jobs data. So what you're seeing in front of you is using Ohio Means Jobs data, we identified that there's roughly 7,000 jobs open across Stark County. And what's interesting is when you look at underneath the details of what types of jobs, what you find is there's actually decent spread and options in terms of what types of jobs are available. So the point here is that there's actually some really short-term impact that we can drive. If you sort of now putting on our economic hat, the goal is, or the orientation is, if for every open job that you have a business that's underperforming its sales. So if they had that one extra person, they're either producing more widgets, they're selling more widgets, they're researching more stuff, they're next generation. So open jobs translates to a missed economic opportunity in the short term. Understanding where those jobs are, how can we best solve for some of that? Not that we have to solve for filling all 7,000 jobs, but the question is, what mechanisms are in place to really address those open jobs in short term and long term is a conversation that we're starting to have. Understanding what our pipeline of students looks like. As you look at your K through 12, one of the stories that this data is showing you is if you just look at your enrollment in K through 12, you see these decreasing amount of enrollment. And so when we say older, poor, smaller, here is in stark color the smaller piece. We're going to lose about 500-600 students between K through 12. Now, obviously, this is not static. People always move. But if you take a current snapshot, that's a reality. Now, this is a really important point to make. If we think that we have a workforce problem today, then let's look at two variables. One, the current unemployment rate, national unemployment rate right now is about 3.7%, which is a national historic low. So the number of people that are unemployed becomes smaller and smaller. In Stark County, that number is closer to 4.7%. Another data point that we need to recognize is the aging population. We keep saying this, we're getting older, we're getting poorer, we're getting smaller. The older piece, if we're getting older and if we're having a difficult time filling our jobs, then imagine what the world looks like when this first grader, the 3,880 first graders enter the workforce 12, 13 years from now. What does that world look like? And what will be the need and demand for the workforce at that time? And so the good news is there are a lot of specific steps we can start to take to start to address some of these patterns. This data point is interesting. Again, addressing the anecdotal piece, there's a lot of sort of a narrative around number of people that are on claims related to unemployment. And here's a data point that shows you how the unemployment claims have shifted in the last 4 to 5 years. And you see a fairly dramatic drop in the unemployment claims. And so that's sort of good news, bad news. Good news, we're putting more people to work, less people are on support. The bad news is if you're an employer looking to hire people, your pool just got much smaller in the last 5 years. So again, good data for us to know so we can anchor our solutions on some of these pieces. So let me run through 4 specific areas related to workforce that we want to tackle as part of this plan. First is, and so the way we're thinking of our workforce-related solutions, first is fundamental elements. What are think of these, the building blocks that we will need in place if we want to truly address our workforce challenges. Second is career introductions. How do we get our people exposed to what jobs there are and put them in those careers? Third is career exposure. How do we actually not just inform, but get our people into the jobs prior to those individuals making major decisions about what classes they're taking, where they're enrolling, so that they can make better decisions. And the last one is career transitions. How do we make sure there's certain, again, rungs on the ladder? Some people thrive at a rung, and when they're trying to move to the next rung, the journey becomes difficult. So looking at through the lens of these 4 areas, let's see what our options, what we're talking about. So first is accurate job listings. While we're talking about 7,000 as the number of open jobs, we know that data it can be refined further. There's a lot of misrepresented data in there, so we have a variety of partners who have already taken up the help. Ohio Means Jobs is taking up the initiative to get us better data, and they're putting certain mechanisms in place on that front. Compensation benchmarking data, as supply and demand, classic capitalism. As the supply of something goes down and the demand's rising, one of the elements will be affected is the compensation of the people in Stark County. So how do we have a more informed conversation with all the relevant parties around what should the compensation look like? Where do we have a gap? And again, it's not just an internal county competition we're having. We sit next to other communities, regions that have different compensation profiles. And so we want to make sure that our stakeholders understand what implication that data has to some of their practices. So again, starting with the data on that front. We want to understand where our workforce programming is. One of the things we've heard a lot in the data collected from our businesses is organizations and individuals would like to know what's the door that I can walk in through and get the support I need on the workforce front. And so we're working with that. We have partners in United Way, Ohio Means Jobs, and several other organizations who are helping us on that front. We're working on also creating a connector. So as we look, again, you think about that analogy of our pool of employees shrinking, oftentimes the employees that are left will have certain social infrastructure, poverty-related challenges. And what do we need to make sure that our employers are doing to address those incremental pieces that they may not have had to concern themselves with in the past? And so creating mechanisms for specifically addressing that point. We have a program at Goodwill. We have Sisters of Charity that's helping us think about that program further on that front. And all of it comes down to how do we make sure that none of these programs are new. And I think that's really important to emphasize. We're not talking about creating new stuff. Components of this exist already. How do we make sure that we're thinking about connecting these programs in a way that drives greater impact? For our end user, in this case, it's the businesses, it's the students, it's the unemployed, underemployed person, it's the parents of the students who sometimes don't know which way to direct their kids. On the career introduction side, the idea here is quite straightforward. We have data that shows us that a lot of the kids are starting to think about their career options in middle school, and frankly, we can do better in helping them understand what career choices are available to them. We're talking about career options not just today, but as you saw the students the first grader that's sitting in the class, if he loves driving trucks, we should be nudging him away potentially from that career because over the next 13 years, given the technological advancements, we're going to see a massive shift in what types of careers and jobs that individual, that kid inherits. So understanding where the jobs are, not just in Stark County, but region, state, understanding where the jobs are headed. So one of the pieces that this morning we had an incredible opportunity to work with the Stark education leaders under the leadership of Joe Chaddick. We met with the school superintendents across the Stark County, and we talked to them about how we can deploy this programming. We're seeing a lot of enthusiasm there. Our hope and our aspiration is to have every student graduating from our system to have a career map that starts at the middle school level. It starts with them understanding the trade-offs, personal trade-offs, social trade-offs, what education they're taking, what options they're directing themselves into, which leads us to the second place, which is as we're helping our students and our individuals make better choices, exposing them to what those opportunities are. This is where businesses can play an incredible role. And just to talk about that a little bit, our aspiration in the next 6 months is to have sort of a menu that we offer every business in Stark County, which says, here are the 15 ways in which you can engage with our workforce. On top is the simplest way, which is 1 hour a year. We want you to come in and talk about what your business does. And on the bottom, maybe it's around, can you support the school or educational system financially? Can you give 20 hours a week, a month? And ensuring that our businesses understand that we're sort of at that point in our economy, shrinking workforce, not just today, but as we look out, our businesses will just need to think about the workforce pipeline in a much more methodical and a collaborative way. So thinking about that. And the last piece is we had an opportunity to meet with all of our Stark County is incredibly unique because you have a lot of colleges and universities, and that's an incredible resource that many communities would be extremely envious of. And so when we met with these leaders, they emphasize the need to help inform, educate our students on when college is the right choice. There's issues related to college graduation rates, and so we want to address that. We want our students to make better choices because obviously college dropout doesn't help an individual or their family's financial situation and has ripple effects. So career introduction. Career exposure, this is all about getting our students into the workplace, helping our students, individuals, develop social networks. And one of the pieces, again, going back to the earlier conversation with the school districts, one of the pieces there, many of you are aware, there's sort of a mental health crisis that's happening in Stark County as well. So in many ways, some of our conversations help create a longer-term mechanism to create the social support for individuals in a more sort of a proactive way. Career transitions. On this piece, we are working on a handful of different programs. The Canton Regional Chamber has been an incredible partner. They have the leadership leadership development program that they lead, and obviously a variety of other programs. We want to figure out how we can create that as one mechanism to help improve the pipeline of leaders across our county. So we're working with them to figure out how we take some of the individuals that have graduated from the leadership program and plugging them into business leadership opportunities, elected official space, looking at serving in the nonprofit sector. And again, there's an opportunity there. The more we can inform, educate our citizens, give them the tools, we can expect greater outcomes from what they can do for the community. For the last 6 months, we've been meeting with about a dozen or so minority leaders to understand there are dimensions of the minority experience in Stark County that's only a person of minority will understand. So bringing them together to say, help us understand the dynamics. Here's all the programming that we're working on. How does the programming help address your key concerns? So they are coming up with their prioritization list and seeing some great enthusiasm on that front. And the final one is wraparound services. For too long, we've been sort of piecemeal in how we address issues for individuals in our community. So we can have, we can offer food, we can offer services, we can offer programming. On the workforce side, we can provide a lot of specific services. What we have to do is evolve that so that we're wrapping around all the programming in a way that helps our people fundamentally and structurally move out of situations that may not be working for them economically. So we have, again, all of your workforce agencies helping us on that front, and it's an incredibly powerful program. So that's workforce. I'm going to take a drink of water, and then we'll talk more. Helping our local businesses retain and grow them. A quick snapshot of what your picture looks like for businesses. Roughly 15,000 businesses across the county, about 100 or so that have annual revenues of greater than 50 million, about 505 that have revenues between 7 and 50 million, and roughly 15,000-ish, 14,500 fall into the less than $7 million annual sales category. Knowing that we have a variety of businesses that have a variety of needs, we will never be able to create one solution that fits all. So what we're trying to do is figure out what are the categories of businesses that we have, what types of challenges do they have, and then create specific programs that is able to address the targeted challenges. So here's some of the things that you can expect from us in the next 12 months. The economic development agents, which includes our various chambers of commerce, Stark Economic Development Board, Ohio Means Jobs, that's doing an incredible job of doing outreach to our businesses as well. Working with all of them, we can all be doing better, period. All of the organizations can do better, and we will do better. So this year, we have a target of how many businesses we want to go out and engage with. So these are the mid-range businesses, the $7 to $50 million in annual sales. Having one-on-one conversations. Earlier this week, we spoke to a great business that's in the food manufacturing space, understanding their needs, and it turns out they have some really awesome opportunities for business expansion, and so that means expanded capital investment, more jobs, higher wage jobs that hopefully has a great impact to that part of our community. So we're going out and engaging with businesses. We're making sure that they know that the system is here to help them. Second is a chamber consortium. Our chambers, they used to do that, and then for a variety of reasons, it sort of disappeared, but we're bringing all our chambers back together. You have about half a dozen chambers across the county. Some of those chambers are under-resourced, so we're pulling them together to figure out how they can drive greater impact together. One of the things they'll be doing is launching a business educational series. Again, now we're thinking about businesses in the less than $7 million annual sales. So we can't go visit every restaurant owner, but hopefully we can give them the tools that they need to help themselves. And part of that is this, you're seeing an example of a Business 911 platform that we're looking to build out. That's going to be one central repository where businesses can, when they have a need, they can identify the help that they need, and if they can't find the answers on the portal, they can reach out to us, and we will guarantee a service level to them. Within 24 hours of your request coming to us, we will respond back. In 5 days, we will check in with you, did we or did we not solve your problem. So creating greater accountability around how we're helping our local businesses. Targeting industries for attraction. We have some incredible clusters here in Stark County. We want to find ways in which we can help these clusters grow further. So historically, the way we've approached business attraction hasn't yielded as much value as we would like. And we see opportunities. And so in this part of the world, we're talking about our local partners, our regional partners, statewide partners, Jobs Ohio at the state level, Team Neo at the regional level, and a variety of other partners, both within county and our neighboring counties. How do we work together as a collective to empower our industries further? And when you start, this is just an incredibly fascinating space. On the petrochemical side, we've got a variety of conversations going on. All of a sudden, there's just an incredible amount of deal flow you're seeing come through Stark County. Businesses are starting to recognize some of the potential and lots of business visits happening. So part of the opportunity is to understand what assets do we have, what assets do we want to promote. We only have a limited capacity. There's only so many hours you have in a day as a collective, so where do we expend our energy? And here's the focus areas that we have been looking to build out. Initially, this is for anyone who may be listening to this conversation and you don't see your industry represented here. please don't be offended. This is just small bites chewed thoroughly. So our focus initially is the metals manufacturing space, food manufacturing space, petrochemicals, and hospitality and tourism. Speak with the businesses that are in this cluster, understand what their needs are, and then get them to help us identify what are the opportunities to build a supply chain. Again, one of the visits we recently had, this is a really fascinating area. There's byproducts in every business, and there's an incredible, when you look at, if you have a half a dozen businesses that are at the upper end of $50 million or even greater in terms of the annual sales, if you can work together as a cluster with them, there's a whole industry that can be built out around the sort of the secondary supply chain. So some really interesting conversations that have started, long ways to go, but that's what's happening on the attraction side. Our goal this year is to be reaching out and speaking with proactively 5 to 10 businesses that are not already in the region after having had many of these local conversations. Innovation and entrepreneurship. This is all about, where does our next Timken steel come from? How do we grow our next round of mega organizations, or even the next ventures like Patriot Software? What do we need to do to help build an ecology that supports entrepreneurship, innovation? And again, it's incredible the resources you have. The last couple of weeks, I've had an opportunity to speak with a incredibly innovative, dynamic, successful entrepreneur. And what's awesome about Stark County, again, is that you have individuals that are really committed to wanting to see things happen. They have areas of passion and interest. Because of this platform now that we have, we've been able to pull them into the conversation. As a matter of fact, later today, we're speaking with this individual and some of his colleagues around how we can pull them in to launch some entrepreneurship-related programs. And specifically, the idea is to create really help promote a culture of entrepreneurship across our county. One of the ideas that we're early in the process right now of testing is, we know every community, whether you're Alliance, whether you're Louisville, Massillon, Minerva, Canton, North Canton, please don't be offended if I don't call your town's name. No matter who you are, you have local business needs. You have spaces that are available that through some coordination we can get new businesses into those communities. So one of the things we're working on, again, working with the chambers, identify what the local business needs are, identifying where the spaces are that we could see some of these businesses go, what some incentives can be that we can offer these businesses. And so building a program that's countywide allows all of our partner communities to join in, and if it doesn't work, we get to learn from why it didn't work. If it works, then potentially the opportunity is that we get to reuse this program year after year to slowly build up our local economies. So we're talking about that. We're talking about physical development. Many of you probably heard about the Innovation District being built out in Canton. We want to make sure that that program connects with programming across the county. Some conversations going on that front. And so I'll keep going. On the infrastructure side, we have these conversations, they've been going on, but frankly, this is the one area that requires still more work. Here, the concept is really, what all do we need to do to ensure that we have, for farmers, what does our soil look like? What's the stuff that we need on the ground to make sure that the businesses can fully thrive and grow? So really, there's 3 focus areas that we're looking at right now. First is, if you want businesses to grow, we need good sites, good locations, buildings. Do we have good inventory? How are we promoting these locations? The recently Stark County applied for a federal program where we had an opportunity to submit several of our locations as part of an innovation district. And so we have opportunities. We have programs now that will allow us to attract investment and offer physical locations to potential businesses looking to move to Stark County. So basically, that's the best magnet that we can offer. Broadband is another opportunity. There's a powerful initiative going on by a set of local stakeholders who've been trying to figure out how to create sort of the mega pipeline for broadband access across Stark County. We're also working with some of the institutional players and trying to figure out, are there ways in which these strategies can come together to, at the end of the day, again, the focus is to help our citizens. How can we make sure that our citizens, our businesses, have access to infrastructure that allows them to grow, whether it's traditional business, today's business, or as businesses to continue to evolve more and more into digital economy? What does that look like? So broadband is a big part of that conversation. That's a really big conversation. And so that's an area that we look to continue having discussions around. And then the third piece is transportation. We've seen a big issue on this front. Again, a lot of communities don't have agencies like ASARDA that you do. And so figuring out how we get an organization like SARDA, getting some of the businesses, the employees connected in a way where we can start to fundamentally address some infrastructure challenges. Now, for some of those, some folks don't, some communities like nimble challenges, not necessarily a more broad solution like ASARDA. And so certainly we're looking at that as well. Organizations like Uber and Lyft have community-based programs as well. So understanding where's the clusters and concentrations of jobs and people and how we make those connections in a more dynamic way is part of that conversation. And the last piece is community engagement. So as we said, our goal is to really make sure that the community understands what we're working on. And we so appreciate many of you who are on the call today, and certainly many of you that hopefully will get to hear the story afterwards as a recording. As it is so critical that we get the voice and feedback from community leaders like you. There is so much. Stark County is so rich with programs and resources and individuals that have incredible aspirations. The best we can hope to do is start the process and create a structure that allows individuals like yourself to look at the plan and say, you know what, I like these 3 things, there's 12 things I don't like, so let me figure out how we can work on those 3 things together. We need your feedback. So as you're listening to our conversation, certainly please send us your chats and your questions now. If you have, we will also be sharing with you the email addresses. You can always reach out to us. This is a program that's going to be very, very dynamic. Just about every week, we meet leaders who have a specific idea. On the minority side, a really great example is one individual who's sort of in the pseudo economic development, small business owner, had this really powerful idea of wanting to see schooling that would allow for especially in in Canton to create more like a 24/7 schooling program. It's a big idea, a boarding school program for students who have issues, personal, social issues. Anyways, it's a big idea, and what we love is that there's an individual who's willing to take the helm of an idea like that, and with time and sort of slow progress, some component of that program certainly we hope to bring to fruition. So, anyways, the whole point of outreach is to identify individuals like Mandwell who could be an incredible partner in some of these conversations. So, here, if you fall into any of these categories or categories not mentioned here, please do let us know. Something you can expect, starting September, we're launching a I Am Strengthening Stark marketing campaign. One tangent really quick, I think this is the power of Stark County. We knew this work had to be done right, and we know you have some awesome, talented people in the community who know this stuff inside out. So we've been able to pull together half a dozen marketing agencies who are volunteering, giving their time to helping us brand what this campaign looks like. They're designing the digital content. They're helping coming up the messaging, helping frame what this thing looks like. They've started to reach out to some of our media partners. And so anyways, we're putting together a whole marketing campaign. Hopefully you'll start to see our materials in on radio, TV, print media, etc. And so our hope is to continue this conversation. There's so much here that it will take multiple conversations of people to really grab their, sort of be able to wrap their minds around what we're talking about and how they uniquely fit. But I can't emphasize this point enough that if you see anything here that you think is interesting, you want to be part of further, please do let us know. Here are just some examples of how different individuals, partners could look to get involved, business leaders. There's so much that you can do on the workforce front, so please help us. And we have very specific needs that we'll be coming to you with. We also know you have needs, and so we're coming up with a set of programs that hopefully provide you the help you need. This is not the quote cliche, I'm big government, I'm here to help you. It's about strong partnership, public-private partnerships that allow us to understand the communal needs and just slowly take bite out of specific issues. Because these are, I think a really big point to make here is, please think of this effort as identifying economic and community development opportunities that are not theoretical. This is not pie in the sky. This is not something that we talk about today and hopefully disappears tomorrow. This is not something that we start today and hopefully your great-great-great-great-grandkids will get to see the value of. We can take very specific steps that drive impact in your community, to you personally and to your family. So that's the aspiration. Educators, we want to get your students out of the buildings, get them experiential learnings, have them make better choices for themselves, for their careers, and create passion for them, for Stark County, so that they don't have to feel like they need to move to Columbus or Chicago, that they can tap into some of those opportunities right here. Job seekers, we have jobs. We have jobs. Please, before you go anywhere else, look for jobs here. And we're building the mechanisms that help you navigate your skills and talents to the jobs. Entrepreneurs, great place to start a business. You have an incredible amount of leadership, talent, resources that are all here to help you start your next business here. Leaders of all ages, learn. Please learn about what's going on, understand the economic data. When people tell you stories, challenge people on data, help them quantify what the issue is. And if you can learn, if we can engage, we can take a lot of positive steps forward. And the last one, nonprofit agencies, funders, we just need to figure out how we are collectively driving impact. How do we maximize our collective impact? How do we slowly trim off our redundancies and some of the isolated activities that we're working on? Again, these are solvable issues, and the economy, a lot of jobs, a lot of business growth, number of people are shrinking. There are elements of our economy that we can tackle today that we fundamentally couldn't tackle 10 years ago when we were going through the great economic recession. Nobody wanted to have these conversations then, but today we can tackle some massive community and social opportunities. So with that, I will pause and I will see what questions we have, and I'll try to answer them the best I can. Okay. All right. Just give me a second. I'll read the questions. Okay, so the first question is, how can we convince business owners and CEOs to embrace remote work from home opportunities instead of always being physically in the office to work? I think it's a great question. In our opinion, it always sort of comes down to economics. If important for the business. Certain jobs you can't do remotely and virtually. Some jobs you can. At the end of the day, we can talk about culture and attitude, but I think a lot of it just really comes down to the economics, which is if I have 3 video production extraordinaires like Josh here, and I have these seats open in my office, and I can't find the talent, at some point the business owner has to make that decision to recruit talent and have them work in ways that may be different to the organization culture. So I think economics at the end of the day override everything else. But certainly I think another element can be is just education. I think one of the pieces that we've seen be very powerful is, I'd say in Stark County, of all the people I've spoken with, 99.9% of individuals have incredible intent. They may be misguided, they may have misinformation, and so 99.9% of individuals, through some factual discussions, here's how many jobs we have, here's what the trends are, if you're looking to fill these jobs and you can't find them, we really need to start thinking about alternative models. I think the data conversations that are factually based help a lot. But then you always have the 0.01% that just has a different orientation. So I don't know if I have a great answer there. I'll take the next question now. Anything else? Oh, that's it. There was one question. So I must have done a really awesome job of explaining items so thoroughly that you guys don't have questions. We'll keep it open for a few more minutes. If you have any questions, happy to take them. And you can see there's an email address there. Please, Annette works here at the Stark Economic Development Board. She's an incredible resource that we have. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them. If you saw anything that you liked, let us know. If there's something that you are intrigued about and would love to sort of understand better so you can participate, let us know. At the end of the day, we are just the facilitators. This is a program, hopefully for you, by you. So, all right, we'll give it one more minute, and then we will call it a day. I like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you, everyone. You guys have a great day, and we will be sending an email with a link to this recording and also a link to this presentation. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.